But they're the villain because they're a strategist and they're plotting and they're cutting out people. They think they're their best friend and then they get rid of them. So the game players, the gamers love those people, right? Because their strategy, they know what they're doing. They're a game ahead. So on the next show, they become the hero because everyone expects so much from them. They were so smart in the first show that they were able to plan their way through it.
You have worked behind the scenes in some of the most intense reality TV environments. So, what is one psychological truth about people that becomes painfully clear the moment the cameras start rolling?
Okay, so what tends to happen in a lot of these shows is that there's so much expectation and it's so tense that they forget about the cameras because a lot of these shows are very competitive, whether it's Big Brother or I guess you have Big Boss in India or Amazing Race or a lot of these shows that I work on. They're so focused on winning, right? On doing good and being good at the game that they don't pay attention to the camera. The cameras are gone within the first, few minutes or hours.
What does reality TV teach us about negotiation, especially with strong personalities like strategists, villains, and chameleons?
I know what I want, and you probably know what I want, but I want to know what you want so we can meet part way if we have to do that. So a good negotiator has empathy. They get in the other person's skin. They know where the other person's coming from, and then I can use that to get a good negotiation with you.
So, folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording. And we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak. And here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. And we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host, Navin Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, welcome back to yet another episode on the Guiding Voice podcast series. And today we are joined by Dr. Stein. He is a leading psychologist, author, and emotional intelligence expert whose work spans reality television, talent retention, and high stakes human behavior. He has screened, coached, and supported cast members across major reality TV formats from dating shows to survival challenges. And his insights reveal how extreme environments amplify the psychology that shapes our everyday lives. So, today we are going to have an interesting conversation with Steve. And before that, let me welcome him. Steve, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series. How are you doing today?
Great to be with you, Naveen.
Wonderful. So, folks, today we are going to unmask reality TV and talk about the hidden emotional games we all play. But before we get into the mainstream conversation, here is an exciting twist as always. Let us tickle our guest brain first. So, Steve, the format is there will be first rapid fire round, which I'm going to kick off now. I'll mention a few words. You need to respond to them based on whatever comes to your mind without thinking much. And if you're ready, let's get started.
Okay.
Okay. My first word is curiosity,
Cat.
invention,
New.
future,
Exciting.
universe,
Big.
leadership,
Great to have.
success,
Wow. Lifelong yearning.
okay, reality TV,
Fun.
life,
Great.
aliens.
Unusual.
Okay, here comes the last word, role model.
Role model? Oh boy. Oh, that's a tough one. Role model. It's hard to think of someone right off the top for a role model. We're India Gandhi.
Indira Gandhi. Okay, amazing. I loved your responses. And Steve, thank you for participating in rapid fire round number one. There is second rapid fire toward the end of the episode, and stay tuned. And thank you once again for being part of our journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. And now we'll enter into the mainstream conversation wherein you can answer to my questions in 1 to 2 minutes each. So, my first question is, who is your guiding voice? Since our podcast name is The Guiding Voice, we are curious to understand our guest's guiding voice.
Wow, my guiding voice, has been, I guess, family members, my father-in-law and father, who were both, business people who were very different from my training as a psychologist. So, I guess when I make decisions in the business world, their voice guides me in terms of whether I'm going in the right direction or doing the right thing, and also whether I'm doing good in terms of society and the world. So I guess I would have to say that's my guiding voice.
Spot on. Now, talk to us about your success mantra, as in top three things that have contributed to your success so far.
Well, I think one of the top things that contributes to success is purpose, having purpose. And I guess I've always approached what I do with a bigger purpose. And in my case, it's been around my interest is in psychology and really the ability to uh, take psychology to the masses. You know, a lot of what we do is in journals and places where only other psychologists read about it. So what the first P for me is purpose, and that's a big one. The second P for me is passion. I'm really passionate about what I do. I love the work I do. The fact that we can take these psychological concepts and put them out there in the world, and thousands or millions of people can get to use those things. So passion is probably my second important guiding principle. And I guess the next one is priorities because have to set priorities. I have so much wide interest level of things I want to do. It's really important to prioritize them so that I can actually get them done.
Mhm. Got it. Now, let's talk about reality TV shows. And my first question from that perspective is, you have worked behind the scenes in some of the most intense reality TV environments. So, what is one psychological truth about people that becomes painfully clear the moment the cameras start rolling?
Okay, so what tends to happen in a lot of these shows is that there's so much expectation and it's so tense that they forget about the cameras because a lot of these shows are very competitive, whether it's Big Brother or I guess you have Big Boss in India or Amazing Race or a lot of these shows that I work on. They're so focused on winning, right? On doing good and being good at the game that they don't pay attention to the camera. The cameras are gone within the first, few minutes or hours. They've lost sight, and they're interacting with people and trying to win and trying to figure out who everybody is. It's just a lot of things that we throw at them at once.
Hmm. Got it. Also, Steve, briefly explain different personalities or archetypes that we see in reality shows.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been working on over the last while is looking at the similarities of some of the characters we get across the different shows, whether it's I work on dating shows, I work on competitive shows, social experiment types of shows, and we tend to see the same archetypes coming up over and over again. For example, if you've watched these shows, you've probably noticed that there's usually a villain, right? Someone that we love to hate that's in there, causing all kinds of trouble for everybody. There's also often somebody who's very funny, what we call comic relief. They're always doing things that are funny, not even intending to be funny. They just end up being very funny. We usually have a strategist, someone who's always planning and plotting because they want to win so badly that they're always two steps ahead of everyone else trying to figure out what's going to happen. Another character I find a lot is what we call the hot mess. somebody who's just emotions all over the place. You know, they don't think very much, but they get emotional about everything. They're crying or they laugh in the funny times, and it's just something that we have to watch, right? We also have the over competitive person. They think they're in the Olympics. You know, they're always trying to win every game so hard. You know, they don't pay attention to other people. They just want to win, and they don't realize that sometimes that's not a good thing because other people are suspicious about those people. They don't want those people in the game. So sometimes they get eliminated earlier than they expect. So that's a sample of a few of the archetypes that I see playing across many of these reality shows that we have.
So as you mentioned, each one of them I could relate to certain characters which I watched on Big Boss Telugu here. That's so
Yeah.
beautifully explained. And also, Steve, I was going through your profile and I found that you have mentioned archetypes are not fixed. Like they are triggered by high stake environments. What are the everyday triggers that push normal people into these reality TV like personas?
Well, sometimes when we get stressed, we're stressed at work, for example, so we automatically shift into one of these archetypes. We focus on being competitive, you know, where the boss says we're not working hard enough, so that we just ignore the people around us, we don't pay attention to them, and we just try and do our work, you know, ahead of everything else. Or, you know, we may have the comic, the person who doesn't know how to deal with stress at work, so they make jokes. They just laugh at everything. Everything's funny. They don't take things seriously. And again, that can get them in trouble sometimes because they're too busy joking about things and not being serious about their work. So, you know, different stressors that we encounter at work or even socially, you know, at home, we may be forced into some of these things because we don't deal with the everyday real issues in a normal way. So we get put into one of these archetypes. We become chaos. We create chaos around us because we don't react in the normal way to things the way we ought to.
Also, you say reality TV is a magnified mirror of society. So, what part of human behavior gets magnified the most? Is it strategy, insecurity, ego, or emotion? Yeah,
Yeah, I think all of these archetypes are magnified on TV, right? We see them big. We see, you know, the hot mess is really over emotional. In real life, it may not be as bad as we see it on TV. We may know someone in our family who's always reacting, you know, always emotional, but not quite the way we see it on TV. But I think TV, if we watch these reality shows, it really brings it out. And that's why we watch them, and we sometimes laugh at them not realizing that this may be me, you know? I do this. I compete so hard. I'm always trying to win that I ignore everybody around me. So it makes us, reflect on what we see and see if we can see it in ourselves.
got it. And which archetype do producers secretly love the most, and which one scares them?
Well, I think they love the villain because that you know, people love to watch a villain, right? You want that bad person because people hate them, and they keep watching what they hate. It's interesting, you don't watch the people you love, you wanna tune into the people you hate because you wanna see somebody beat them or do them in, so you keep watching that. They also tend to like the hot mess express, as I call it, the person who's just emotional all the time. And the other one we call the producer's dream, is the person who's doing the narrative. You know, when you have the diary room in Big Boss and you have somebody talking about what's going on and who's good and who's bad. They love that person because that brings the narrative into the show. So it makes sense of all the crazy things that we're watching. So that person can get into the diary room and they're aware of the camera, they know how to talk, and they give you good sound bites. They know how to express that this person's a real jerk and that person's really smart. I gotta watch out for this person. And producers love that person because they can see the big picture. They can see what's going on and put it all together so the people at home get a better picture of what's happening inside the house.
Got it. And which archetype scares the producers?
Oh, scares them? Uh, I guess they'd be scared if the hot mess gets out of hand. You know, they get too crazy, you know, they're just emoting over everything. They can't get their act together. Production likes to move, they like to keep things moving. And when we have to slow down or stop because somebody's not functioning very well, that can become a problem.
Got it. And let's imagine one person is participating in multiple shows. How does the same person become the hero in one show and the villain in another? And what does that say about storytelling and also psychology?
Yeah, that's a great point. So you can I have seen that happen where somebody, let's say, starts out as a villain in one show, but they're the villain because they're a strategist and they're plotting and they're cutting out people, they think they're their best friend and then they get rid of them. So the game players, the gamers love those people, right? Because their strategy, they know what they're doing, they're a game ahead. So on the next show, they become the hero because everyone expects so much from them. They were so smart in the first show that they were able to plan their way through it. But sometimes they go on another show and everybody's rooting for them. But because other people in the cast may know about that, they want to get rid of them right away. So you're cheering for this person, but they often don't last that long in the second time around because they got their number. They already know that this person can be dangerous. So they try and get rid of them.
Can a chaos agent or hot mess type actually become a strong leader in real life? And what shifts when the cameras turn off?
It's hard for the hot mess to become a leader in real life because they're always putting emotions too far ahead of their thinking, right? They're not thinking their way through situations. They're just getting emotional all the time. We want a little bit of emotion in our leaders. We want them to acknowledge emotions. We want them to express their emotions, but we don't want them to be a hot mess. You can be sad about something, but we don't want you crying all over the floor at work. It just doesn't work well. If you're spilling your guts out and crying in front of everybody you work with, they're gonna have a hard time taking you seriously. So hot mess is not a great leader, but being aware of your emotions is good, and being able to manage those emotions so that everybody knows that you're upset, but they don't feel your upsetness, right? They can see it in your expression, but you don't take it out on everybody. You can manage it.
Got it. What is one psychological red flag you absolutely do not ignore during cast screening?
There's probably a few red flags. So what one thing we don't want is someone who what we call as a borderline personality disorder. That is someone who has very serious problems with relationships with others, and that can cause difficulty on the set. Another thing we gotta watch out for is someone who has a serious, drug problem. We don't want that to interfere with performance, whether it's alcohol or drugs, any kind of substance use difficulties. And the third one is aggression. We really don't allow any aggression, physical aggression or other. So if people have a history of physical aggression or getting into trouble because of that, they're not going to be qualified to be on one of these shows when we screen them anyway.
Got it. What does reality TV teach us about negotiation, especially with strong personalities like strategists, villains, and chameleons?
Well, one of the interesting things that we have here is that you're negotiating under pressure and you're negotiating basically for your life, right? Because if you don't negotiate well, you're thrown out. So we can get to see some really good negotiation by watching these shows because, like I say, you're trying to stay in there. It's for your ability to live through the show. So what we see are strategists, for example, or chameleons who sort of stay under the radar when there's conflicts going on. They don't throw themselves in the middle of the conflict. They kind of stay down a little bit and wait till the smoke settles, and then they come in and try and settle between the two sides. So you want to be on good terms with as many people as you can, but you don't want to be seen as a floater where you just sort of go along with everybody. So if you're gonna be good at negotiating, you want everyone to think that you're on their side. You're their friend, and you're there to help them, right? Now, the reality is you're probably gonna get rid of half of these people as time goes on, so you're gonna betray them. but you want people to think that you're there for their best interest. It's not about you, it's about them. And if you can do that well, you'll be a good negotiator. And in real life too, when you're negotiating with someone, you wanna find out what's in it for them. What do they want out of this deal? I know what I want, and you probably know what I want, but I wanna know what you want so we can meet part way if we have to do that. So a good negotiator has empathy. They get in the other person's skin. They know where the other person's coming from, and then I can use that to get a good negotiation with you.
Got it. Also, tell us about the most misunderstood archetype, the one people love to judge but rarely understand deeply.
That they don't understand? One they don't understand is probably the underdog, right? There's always this underdog, who you think is a floater, but what they're doing is they're paying attention to all the dynamics going on in the house. They're watching what's happening. They're not saying a lot, so you don't know much about them, but they pay close attention, and then when the time comes, they strike. Then they come out and they know who to approach, who to form an alliance with, who they wanna get rid of, who's dangerous. So it's that underdog that I think you have to look out for, and we have them in real life too, right? We work with people in the office, and you don't know what they're really thinking or where they're coming from. They keep a lot of things kind of private, but eventually they speak up, and you find out, "Hey, that person's not so dumb after all. They really know something. They've been paying attention." So it's the underdog who pays attention to what's going on around them and uses that information to move further ahead.
Mhm. And is there any archetype that consistently wins, whether in TV, workplace politics, or life?
We don't find one particular one that wins because let's say the strategist you think is going to win. But what often happens is people get wind of that or people figure out that person's a strategist and they get rid of them as soon as they figure that out. So it's hard to say any particular type wins. They probably tend to win more than others. The chaos agent tends not to win because people can't stand people who create a fuss everywhere they go without, thinking about it. The overcompetitive person can sometimes win if they can keep a little bit under the radar that nobody else knows that they're all about just competition. But the underdog with a heart of gold, that tends to be someone that we see coming up and winning a fair bit because again, you don't expect that from them and people tend to like them if they play the game right, and they can rise up through the middle and end up being the surprise winner.
Steve, also tell us about what surprised you the most after years of working with cast members. Something viewers would never guess.
Wow. Well, it was a whole new area for me whatever 20 years ago or whenever I started doing this stuff. What has impressed me the most? I think what impresses me is that when I debrief people when they come off the shows, I would say about 80 to 85% of them tell me that it has been a growth experience, that they really enjoyed the experience. You think people talk about reality TV, they think it's terrible, it's a mess, they just hear bad stories. But those bad stories are probably less than 10% of the people who are on there. The majority of them see it as, even with all the stress and the pressure, it's a not only just a growth experience, but they've learned about themselves. They've learned things they never knew about themselves, because they're put in with people that they would never encounter in their daily lives. It's a whole different, diverse type of people that they're mixed with. So that would be one of the big surprising things, the amount of growth that people get. And the other sort of surprising thing is the bonding that happens. You'll see people fight cats and dogs on the show, right? But they can be the best of friends once the show is over. We have, a lot of the shows I work on have alumni meetings. Every year, get together somewhere in a town somewhere, and they party together. So people who are at each other's throats, yelling at each other, screaming at each other, Uh, they end up having a beer together, 2 years later, laughing and reminiscing about the good time they had. So those are 2 kinda surprising things that I never would have expected.
Interesting, interesting. And Steve, this has been an incredible conversation. And personally, I got a lot of insights about reality show, especially different types of archetypes and all. And it's time for us to add some more spice and some more excitement to the episode, which means it brings us to the second rapid fire round. So, shall we continue?
Okay.
Okay, here comes my first bullet. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Peace in the future.
In the future? Wow. Can you describe yourself in just one word?
Happy.
Most dangerous archetype in real life.
The villain.
Most lovable archetype on off camera days.
The underdog.
Which archetype would win in corporate life?
The strategist.
One archetype you personally relate to.
Comic relief.
And worst advice contestants give each other.
Oh, put on a role. Pretend to be someone you're not.
Most important skill to survive a reality show.
Empathy.
Most emotionally intelligent cast member trait.
Oh, empathy.
One thing viewers always get wrong about villains.
That they're not friendly.
And the one archetype every leader needs on their team.
Whoa. Probably, underdog.
Underdog. I think you tend to be inclined towards underdog mostly. I've heard saying underdog multiple times. And with that, let me bring the last bullet out of second rapid fire round. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you'd like to see or invent yourself?
Hmm. Oh, boy. I think I've got it with AI, but, yeah, it's an artificial intelligence built into, my watch.
All right. Interesting. And thank you for participating in rapid fire round number two also. Let's flip back to the mainstream. So, Steve, if you could redesign a reality TV show to make it emotionally healthier and more compelling, what would you change first?
Well, one of the, things that makes it compelling are the challenges. So you wanna make sure the challenges are going to capture people's imagination or people are gonna be excited about the challenges. So I think that would be one big area to work on. Really good challenges, both mental and physical challenges.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and it has been quite insightful. I learned a lot. And how is your experience being hosted on The Guiding Voice?
It was great, great to speak with you, and you had some wonderful questions that really got into some of the meat of reality TV.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best and looking forward to hosting you again in the future.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
So, friends, that was our episode with Steven Stein. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. If you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, request you to share with at least three of your friends or colleagues who would also like TGV, the guiding voice. So spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. Also, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, request you to follow and also leave a rating or review so that we can amplify our reach. And now it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment. Having had amazing conversation with the Dr. Steve Stein on reality shows and especially different archetypes of reality show characters, I thought of presenting you few lesser known facts about the origins of reality shows. The first fact is that the first ever reality show was actually in 1948. Before even Big Brother, Survivor, or even Candid Camera prank shows, the world had Candid Camera in 1948, widely considered the earliest prototype of reality TV. And it showed real people reacting to staged scenarios decades before reality TV became a term. Next fact is that the next fact is that MTV's The Real World, which was in 1992, was a social experiment before it was a TV show. You know, producers famously said what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real. This actually became the blueprint for modern reality formats. So, strangers, conflict, confessionals, and cameras capturing everything. Next fact is that reality TV exploded because it was cheap, and networks realized reality show cost a fraction of scripted series with no high priced actors, writers, or sets. And this triggered the reality boom of the early 2000s. And the last fact is that reality TV was once called unscripted drama. Producers didn't like the term reality TV early on because they believed it was too raw, and networks preferred calling it unscripted drama, acknowledging the emotional roller coaster without admitting how messy it could get. So these are the things which I wanted to share from trivia perspective, especially related to reality TV shows. So before you go away, do let me know which is your favorite reality show. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, you can comment there, or if you found it on audio platforms like Spotify, you can comment there as well, or on social media platforms. Would love to hear what you are going to say. So, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.